If you ever wondered what it takes to land a corporate board seat, you're about to hear from someone who's made it her mission to show you how. Deborah Rosati is an award-winning corporate director who served on boards for over 20 years. She's also the founder and CEO of Women Get On Board. And in this conversation, Deborah shares what boards actually look for in their candidates, what holds many women back, and the exact playbook that you can use to go from quiet expert to board ready, visible, and in demand. I'm Dr. Andrea Wojnicki, and this is Talk About Talk, where we coach ambitious executives to stand out with confidence and credibility. To learn more, click the links in the show description. Now, let's jump right into my conversation with Deborah Rosati. Thank you, Deborah, for being here today to talk with me and the Talk About Talk listeners about getting women on boards.
Well, thank you, Andrea. Delighted. My favorite topic each and every day.
So we're going to put a little bit of a communication skills spin on this as we were talking about. And my first question for you is, can you help us identify some communication skills that are particularly important for board members?
That is a great question. I think I've thought long and hard on that. I would say for board members in particular, you have to remember your role. Your role is there to have an oversight, insight, foresight, and hindsight. So you're not there to manage the business day to day. So how you're showing up is really important. That ties back to your role from an oversight perspective. So active listening. You have to be going into the boardroom, not telling the executive team what to do, but listening and be really active. And I know I have to work on that each and every day, but that listening, because if you're there to provide and make informed decisions, you have to understand the issues and you need clarity around the issues. And so a way that I like to communicate on the active listening is, so Andrea, let's say you are the executive and the board member and you're presenting a sensitive matter. I might come back to you, Andrea, and say, so Andrea, what I'm hearing you say is XYZ. Am I missing anything? Or can you help me understand, right? And that's really that active listening where you're listening to that person, but maybe you need to clarify. Maybe you need some additional information, or you don't want to come across as a board member telling the person across the table from you what to do. And I've been on the other side of that as an executive where the once a quarter would come in and tell me what to do as the CFO. And I vowed to myself I would never be one of those board members. So I feel like active listening is number one. Secondly, showing up with empathy, being an empathetic listener and being empathetic in your communications. So I think as women, we do a really great job of showing up with empathy. We're listening. That's our EQ, right? EQ, our emotional intelligence. Empathy is one element of it. So when you're coming in, you're looking, you're observing. I might be observing that someone's really tired in the boardroom. Someone's really tired around the table. Could executive, it could be a board member. And maybe it's a communication that you have not right then and there in the board meeting, but it might be after you call the person up and say, hey, Andrea, I noticed you're really tired. Is everything okay? Being empathetic, maybe understanding, the board meetings, that the length of the board meetings, the time that you're communicating with each other. And maybe some people have different styles, right? Some people like to be confrontational. Some like to be collaborative. And so really that empathy rolls up to that emotional intelligence. And I think as women, we do a really good job showing up with that, but we can lean in with that empathy.
So listening and being empathetic, I have to tell you, I've been on some not-for-profit boards and I remember this sort of mantra, which was nose in, hands out. You see the head nod. I feel like this should be updated based on what you said, which makes a lot of sense. Maybe it's ears in, hands out.
I love that. Well, so Andrea, you're right. There's a common term called nose in, fingers out. So whether you put your fingers in or you put your hands in, whichever, it's basically saying, listen, your job is to have an oversight, not to get into the trenches. So I do like that, ears in, because you have to be listening. And I think the other element that really amplifies your communication skills in the boardroom is there's a term called wait. Have you heard of that?
No, tell me.
Oh, I love it. So you have to think about when you're showing up in the boardroom, why am I talking?
Oh my gosh. Deborah, I love that.
I have to remind myself all the time, Andrea. So these are tips for me is like, okay, I get excited. I want to show up. I want to comment. But then I have to step back and go, but wait a sec, Deborah. Why am I talking? What do I need to bring to the table? You don't have to be the smartest in the room. You don't have to be the loudest in the room. And even your positioning of when you lean in to have a conversation, are you the last to speak? Are you the first to speak?
Oh my goodness. So I am going to steal. First of all, I love acronyms. And this one is
someone else. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
public domain.
Okay. So why am I talking? I encourage my clients to think about, no matter what level they are in the organization, to track the ratio. How much am I talking versus everyone else? And when you're junior in your career, a lot of folks need to speak up. So if there's 4 people in the room, try to speak at least 25%. The folks that are more senior, they need to speak typically less than their fair share. And also, as a leader, make sure that everybody else is speaking their fair share. So making space as a leader for everyone to contribute. And so you're taking this kind of idea of tracking the ratio and actually turning it inward and saying, not only how much am I talking, but why am I talking right now? What is the purpose? And I think I would just write this word on the top of like the meeting agenda and write wait. And then when you look down, ask yourself, why am I talking? And it will amplify our self-awareness like exponentially.
Without a doubt. And that kind of goes back to that empathy and emotional intelligence. And the other element I think when you are in the boardroom is you want to be an ally for others in the boardroom. So especially if you're the chair of the board, your role is to be the sort of the lead conductor. You're facilitating an orchestra to have conversation, to put out the best music as a team. So when you're thinking about facilitation, not only as a chair, but as a fellow board member, is look around the room who hasn't spoken. So you may be able to amplify someone else's voice. And that doesn't apply just in the boardroom. That applies everywhere where you go, whether it's an executive meeting, whether it's a client meeting, whatever meeting it is. But I do think it's important to, if you notice that someone has not spoken up, and some cultures, they're more submissive not to speak up, right? So you want to encourage that dialogue. And that really goes to that whole diversity of thought and diversity of perspectives. And everybody has different communication styles, as you know.
Yeah. And I absolutely agree. The onus is on you, whether in the boardroom or outside of the boardroom. If you are an effective leader, you're making sure you're pulling out everyone's valuable opinion. Otherwise, why are you at the meeting? That's a whole other topic. So, Deborah, I feel like this is all great. You're going into your meeting, you're listening, your ears in, hands out or fingers out. You're being empathetic. You're asking yourself, why am I talking? You're prepared. Sometimes things go sideways in these meetings. I know. And sometimes you may anticipate it because there's some sort of restructuring or investigation, or there's major succession planning issues going on. You're nodding your head. Yes, check, been there. Yeah, been there. So when things get intense, when maybe there's even conflict, maybe amongst board members or between the board and the executive, do you have some guidelines for either mindsets or tactics that people can try to keep things productive?
Well, there's a saying, stay calm and surface with grace. So if you can think of that, of course, there's always going to be conflict. There's going to be, because the stakes are high. So you've talked about some very stressful, very complex matters. So it could be an M&A. Let's use M&A as an example, okay, for acquisition. And I love to give stories. So if I can kind of amplify one. So typically when you get into these unique situations, they're special situations. And usually you're forming a special committee of the board. And that special committee has a mandate, right? Because a lot of these special situations are very time sensitive. So you're forming a special committee, and that maybe it's 2 or 3, maybe 4 members of the board, depending on the size of the board, are going on this special committee because there's a lot of diligence, there's a lot of work. At the end of the day, if you're going to make an informed decision on whether you're going to accept a proposal, whether it's a special investigation, whether it's succession planning, crisis communication, you've got to make an informed decision as a board. So you ultimately have to collaborate, but you sometimes have to go into special task force, special committee to go deeper into the. And so I had a situation where we were a board, and the chair of the board, we formed the special committee, and he said, okay, and there was 4 of us. And he said, you're all going to lean in. You're going to lean in. And Deborah, you're going to lean in on due diligence. And Sue and Joe, let's use their names, you're going to lean in on this. And and really what he was doing was really trying to activate us in an area that he knew we had expertise, but he didn't want us all leaning in the same direction, right? And it was powerful moment in time for me as a director where a chair saw the value that I could bring, and he just positioned it. And I never thought that my work was about leaning in. And it made that special committee really impactful and very agile, because we all had our lean in roles, and it really allowed us to facilitate our special committee meetings. So when we showed up, we each had areas that we were leaning in. We were closely I was working with valuation experts. I was working with investment bankers. I was working with the CFO. There was a team, and I was showing up in a lot of those meetings to just be eyes and ears of the board, and so that when we met as a special committee, I could lean in on where we were in the process, where the discussions were. And so to me, that communication was the delegation, divide and task, but it was framed in this lean in concept. So he took the expertise of the various, and it was really great because we were able to divide and conquer, and it was a really successful M&A, and it was in 60 days or less. So you're working, round the clock, but it was really valuable. So from a communication, that chair of the board who ended up chairing the special committee really empowered us as a committee.
So Deborah, what you're describing here integrates so beautifully with the work that I do with my clients on helping them develop their personal brand or their professional identity. And to summarize it as succinctly as I can, basically, there is real power in identifying your unique strengths and passions. And especially as you become mid-career and more senior in your career, if you want to have, your most satisfying and successful career, which of course you do, double down on those strengths. And you're saying in the board context, this can actually help you be productive. So I just want to underscore for the listeners that everything they've heard me say in the past about personal branding, you should apply to your board role. Make sure your board chair and the nomination and governance committee understand exactly what your strengths are. I want to share it's not even a story, it's more like an anecdote, but I was on a hospital foundation board. And I have a PhD in business, so I can talk finance and strategy and marketing and blah, blah, blah. But in this foundation meeting that I'm thinking about in particular, the finance guys, the finance committee was going way deep in front of all of us, right? And I actually thought to myself, why am I here? I can't contribute anything, whatever. And they kept getting more and more and more into the minutia. And then I thought to myself, I had this moment where, kind of like you said, I was like, why am I here? Why am I talking? I'm here because of my strategy and branding expertise and communication expertise. So I raised my hand and I literally said the words, based on my expertise, from what I'm hearing from a financial perspective, we can communicate it this way to our foundation, blah, 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 whatever, stakeholders. And everyone, I remember physically, everyone turned and nodded. And I was like, oh, there's magic in really doubling down on what your unique role or expertise is on the board, right?
Can I just extend that out for you, Andrea? Because I know we're going to talk about women and communication style. So what you did, and I love it, and I want to elevate that for you, is instead of saying, hey, I don't know why I'm here, you turned it around. You positioned to say, I'm here. Yes. Here's what I'm hearing, and here's how we can apply it, and here's what I can bring to the table, right? You were able to turn it around to use your value proposition and what made you unique. But you had to step back from the situation, right?
I did. I
And,
did.
but I love that. That was so powerful. I've had situations, if I may, because this is very much the same topic, where I was just joining a new public company board post AGM. It's during COVID. They're Zug base Switzerland. I haven't met a single person in person. Go into the AGM and they're just forming this nominating corporate governance committee. And I know for certain they wanted me to chair the audit committee because yes, I have financial expertise. But there was this moment in the meeting that I had this pivot. Sometimes you just have to wait for it and find that nugget. So it came up, the question came up, I was like, well, what's a nominating corporate governance committee? I'm new into this board role. We're all virtual. And all I said to the chair of the board is, can I take this? I would like to answer this question. He said, you go ahead, Deborah. And at the end of the sentence, I said, and by the way, that's the committee I want to chair.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. So there's something about focus here, right? It's not that I didn't say I was good at everything. I said, based on my specific expertise, here's my input. And you were saying, I can take this. I'm not saying I'm leading the meeting. I'm not taking over, but I want to answer this and this. And yeah. So there's something magical about focus.
Well, but I think what it does is we've given ourselves permission. We have the confidence to say, yes, I know this. I don't know everything, but I'm going to lean in here and this is where my focus, and I know I can make those contributions. But you have to be certain and confident that you can deliver.
Right. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but you do want to be confident at the same time in what your specific focused expertise is. So let's shift then to women on boards. And I know I did a little bit of reading and research, Deborah. I know you've been the only woman on the board before. I was the only woman in the marketing department at Rotman when I was on the faculty there teaching in the MBA program. It's a fascinating experience, a little bit horrifying, I will admit. Do you have any advice generally for women who find themselves as the only one or one of the only ones in terms of establishing credibility beyond what we were just mentioning and highlighting your unique expertise? How else can we establish credibility and influence in our board roles?
Well, we have to have courage and confidence without a doubt. But to build that credibility, you just don't show up and say, hey, I'm credible because I have my FCPA and I have my ICD and I'm a doctor, I have my honorary doctorate. That people read that, but you've got to build that trust and that credibility, right? It's not instantly. So for me, when I go into situations or I go into new environments, it takes time. So you're reading the person. I'll give you an example of where it was instant credibility, but I didn't do it intentionally. I'm in a board interview and I'm meeting with the CEO and the CFO. And it was a public company, and I read all the disclosures. I read the financial statements, the notes to the financial statements, and I asked one simple question. And the question was, I noticed in note 15 of your financial statements and your segmented information that you've got a healthcare division. When are you spinning it off? The CEO looked at me and he said, are we under an NDA? And I said, well, no, it's in your notes to your financial statements. The CFO looked at me and we just continued on. So I wasn't there to do a aha, but I was there to understand how impacting the company. And so it was just, it wasn't a trick question. It was just a matter of fact question, but it was helping me inform where the company was going. So whatever your expertise may be, is use it appropriately at the right time. Don't be flustered by it. Don't ask for permission to do that. I responded and I said, no, we don't need to be under NDA because so when you're informed and you have that information and you have the expertise, it is really powerful to show up with it. Don't not use it, but use it at the appropriate times.
So I'm hearing here, be very prepared, which on one hand is almost like generic advice, but on the other hand, I know from being on boards, that's not always what happens. So be very prepared and don't underestimate the power even of asking questions in terms of establishing your credibility, right?
Well, it's that style. I always like to kind of approach it. If I'm not certain, I might just say, hey, can you help me understand? I've seen it this way. I don't know if I fully understand where you're coming from, but help me understand. Well, that's a different approach than saying, why did you deliver this? This does not make sense. It's like, help me understand. And don't forget, as board members, from the Rotman, from ICD, they talk about the divide. and they think about a Grand Canyon, and there's this big divide. The board's on one side, management is on the other side, and there's this divide. Management spends 2,000 to 3,000 hours in their day job and what they do. The board is maybe 200 to 300 hours, so 10% of their time. So there's a big divide between what management is doing and understands the business versus the board. So you're always trying to think about how you can get better alignment and how those communication skills can help you at the end of the day make a more informed decision.
So this sounds like advice that everyone would benefit from, not just women. Is there anything in particular that and I'm not negating it, it's still critical, but is there anything in particular that stands out based on your own experience and or mentoring women, stories that you've heard, things you've observed that maybe women need to pay more attention to?
Well, I like to use the Barbie analogy, and yes, I'm wearing my Barbie pink. I think as women, we sometimes hold ourselves back. We're not good enough. We're not smart enough. We're not pretty enough. And you know what? We are enough. And so the reason I say that is I talk to a lot of women and they'll say to me, I don't have financial expertise. And I say to them, guess what? Not everybody on the board needs financial expertise. You need to have financial acumen. You need to have financial literacy, but you do not need to have. So there'll be the conversation is, well, I'm not a lawyer. I said, not everybody on the board is going to be a lawyer. And so sometimes we discount what we truly bring to the board because we talk about what we don't have versus what we have. And I think to you, with your clients and your personal branding, it's all about who you are and how you show up and what you bring to the table. As women, we need to show up with our best foot forward, but we have unique skills.
Yes. So lead with your strengths. And then, in your interview or whatever, you can say, here are the areas where I have baseline knowledge or experience, or I'm getting training on this thing or whatever, but highlighting first and foremost what your strengths and your expertise
I would
is.
take it one step further, is just build on your strengths. I don't think you need to talk about your weaknesses. If it comes up and say, hey, Andrea, I noticed you haven't been on a public company board. Tell me how we can get comfort around that. You might say, well, actually, I have worked for public companies in marketing and communications, and here's the value that I contribute, right? So I would take the weakness out because as women, we will always default to that as opposed to here's how I'm leading.
I love it, Deborah. So something that you don't know about me yet is that I am a huge fan of the power of three. In fact, it's a joke with many of my clients. I told you that at the end, I'm going to summarize with the three key learnings that I want to reinforce. I have a self-introduction framework that was published in the Harvard Business Review, a simple framework for introducing yourself. It's 3 steps. It's like I have 3 kids. It's all about when I say, whenever you're wondering how many, make 3 your default. And I read that you have a unique perspective on the power of 3. Can you share that with the listeners?
Thank you, Andrea. So it is not something that I made up. It's out there. It's the power of 3 with respect to boardrooms and women in the boardroom. So 1 woman on a board is a token, 2 is a presence, and 3 is a voice. And I think that I have been the only one, a token or the only one and it changes the dynamics. And I know we'll get into that different style as well. But also just on 3s, Dale Carnegie, did you ever do public speaking or read his of influence? He said, you've for public speaking, it's the 3 E's, you've earned the right, you're eager to tell, and you're enthusiastic, right? So I love the 3. I love 3.
It's everywhere.
I love threesomes.
Yeah. Deborah, you're going to get quoted on that.
Okay.
That's funny. So you said you've had experience as a token, as like one of 2 in terms of the presence and in terms of 3 being a voice. It's real.
It's real. And then tip it where you actually have a majority of women on board. And I've had that experience. So I've had the full range, but usually being the only.
Yeah. Oh gosh. You're reminding me of, and I can't remember who it is, but it's a powerful managing director of one of the big investment banks on Wall Street. And she's had an incredibly successful career. And she said, people always told me, oh, poor you, you're the only woman in the room. And she said, in the back of my mind, I was always like, no, that this is what makes me memorable. I'm the only woman here. So, I mean, there are strategies that we can use sometimes when we're forced into it, but it's not ideal.
Well, always look at it that I was given the opportunity as a professional. So I never looked at it to say, hey, I'm a woman. I need to be treated different. I have two examples, if I may. 2015, I go for a board interview. It was a public company and it was intergenerational. It was all men and it was retail. 80% of your purchaser or consumers in retail are women. So they were going to be bringing the first woman on their board. And I walk in and I have my first interview with the CEO. And he says, I'm not interviewing you because you're a woman. And I thought, I'm 30 plus years into my career here, or maybe maybe 25 years. I thought that's a really odd way to start a conversation. But I thought I was prepared. I reviewed all the documents and I was very curious on the position and the opportunity. So all I said to him was, I'm not here because I'm a woman. I'm here because I can add value to your board and let's talk about your strategy. I had a 2-hour strategy conversation with him. And I just stepped back and I thought, well, he's probably uncomfortable. He probably didn't know how to position it. I didn't take offense to it. I thought I just came back even stronger.
Good for you.
And I had to, it was 2015 and I'm like, how is this happening in my career? And then I have one other scenario was I was in venture capital and I was the only female general partner in that particular office. And we would have meetings and my colleagues would go to the men's bathroom. They'd come back from the men's bathroom and they'd made a decision. So I started following them to the men's bathroom. And they started taking notice and they said to me, what are you doing standing out here? I said, if you're making decisions in there, then I'm going to be in there making decisions with you. They did not do that ever again.
Wow. Deborah, you're ballsy.
Well, I had no choice.
Oh my gosh. Desperate times call for desperate measures. So I'm going to guess, is it true that you weren't always this confident? I mean, it sounds like you were confident in your voice, right? You said to this CEO, that I'm not just speaking as a woman, I'm speaking as someone who's qualified, that you basically told these men that it's not appropriate for you to be making decisions in the men's room. Early in your career, I mean, were you always this confident woman or did you evolve over time?
I think evolution definitely evolved, but I think from a young age, I had an older brother, I have a younger sister. My brother didn't want to go to school. I said to my mom that I'll go to school for him. He didn't want to swim. I said, I'll swim for him. So I guess I had this kind of throughout my life. I wouldn't say I had as much confidence as I do now and kind of what I know now versus what I knew back then. But I always had curiosity. And I always, when the door opened, I felt that door opened for a reason. So I'm going to walk through it. There have been many a times where I fell down and had to pick myself up. There are times where I thought, what was I thinking and why am I doing this? But I think the confidence really came from just wanting to always be moving ahead, doing something unique, doing something different, but having the base that I'm a professional. I've been trained a certain way. I've had different situations. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to your inner drive, right?
I've heard you use the term curious and curiosity a few times. Can you comment on the role of curiosity in your success and the success of other folks that you see?
Well, curiosity to me is something about you have an open mind. You're curious on something. You're curious, why is this not? And so for me, when I founded Women Get on Board, my curiosity was, why are these women always asking me how I got on a board? And this was like going back to like 2009. I started doing slides and I called them Women Get on Board. I do these presentations and I was just curious, well, why do I always get asked this question? And like, I know there's other women on boards. And so that curiosity really led me to being, as an entrepreneur, it's like, well, how come no one else is doing this? And if there really is this demand, what should I do about it? So that was curiosity for me that really created this platform for Women Get on Board. And then the curiosity of just opportunity to meet women like you and have conversations. I'm curious when I go on every call that I have and every meeting I have. I'm curious, how did you get to be where you are? What do you need? And how can I help you? So that curiosity is something I guess ingrained in me.
Yeah. So I was telling you before we press record here that this morning I did a workshop and I was coaching some women on their branding and their confidence. And we ended up talking about the growth mindset or curiosity a lot and how I have definitely know, I mean, I advocate for a growth mindset. I encourage it in myself, in my kids, in the folks that I coach. And I have noticed that most of my clients self-select. They have a growth mindset. They want to improve. Otherwise, they wouldn't be investing in coaching, right? But there are a few who are less so, and they inevitably are not as successful. Like I think there's a very strong correlation between a growth mindset, curiosity, however you want to, a lifelong learner, whatever, however you want to label it, and success. So I was curious about, and I'm not surprised. Before I get into the 3 rapid fire questions, Deborah, I want to ask you, if you could go back to when you were maybe interviewing for your first corporate board role, and then also when you were first starting to attend these meetings, if you could go back and give yourself some advice, what advice? And yes, I'm asking you this so that other people that are listening can maybe extrapolate. What advice would you give to your younger self?
My younger self. So I've been serving on corporate boards for almost 25 years, and it really came to me because I was in venture capital, and as a general partner, I served on the portfolio company boards. So by virtue of that position, I ended up being a board member. But post that, when I was independent, for me was doing due diligence, do as much due diligence on the financials, on the people, on the culture, on the industry. And a lot of people feel like, oh, it's an opportunity. I can't ask these questions. And I'm like, you have a fiduciary duty to do due diligence, and the company is going to do due diligence on you. So I would earlier self, do more due diligence. And, I don't know if it was over anxious to get on that certain board or do it, or you knew the people, but I would say, be prepared, do your due diligence, research, and you know what? Be prepared to say no. Say, no, this isn't the right fit for me now, but I know 3 other women, right? So there's nothing wrong with assessing an opportunity and saying no, right? It's your reputation, it's your time. Also, know when to leave a board. So always know your exit strategy. Is it the right time? Is management change? Is it situation? So just be really deliberate in why you're joining a board. So make sure it aligns with all your values. You've done your due diligence, and also know when to leave a board.
I think smart for people, even in the positions that they're taking outside of their board roles, right? It's almost like we're going full circle here, Deborah. You started with the why am I talking? And then it becomes like, why am I here? Like, you have a purpose. You're aligning your objectives and your values with those of the organization. You have a purpose, not just for talking, but actually for showing up and for, formally taking that role. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not as thoughtful or purposeful, right, about what they're doing and why they're doing it in the moment or generally in their careers.
Well, what I see a lot of too, a lot of women want to get on a board and they're super excited. I'm on a not-for-profit. And then they go on another not-for-profit and another. And really what I say to them is, why you're not elevating your board leadership, why you're not chairing a committee, why you're not chairing the board, because part of that evolution in your board journey is to elevate your board leadership too, right? So as you develop your skills and your knowledge in the boardroom, you should also want to be taking on those leadership roles. And if you look at the data, less than 8% of TSX listed companies have female chairs of the board.
Sorry, what percent?
8%.
Oh, wow.
That was last year's data. 8%. So if we're going to go, we have a seat at the table. We also should be leaning in and taking on leadership roles.
100%. Okay. Are you ready for the 3 rapid fire questions, Deborah?
Bring it.
First question, are you an introvert or an extrovert? And how does that affect your communication?
Well, I'm sure I won't surprise you. I'm an extrovert.
No, I'm not surprised.
And how does it affect my communication? Well, I'm working on listening, because I have a lot of energy. I have enthusiasm. I show up. I want to fill those blank spaces. So I have to work on, why am I talking? I have to work on, so I know I can bring the energy in, but I also want to make sure that I'm giving space for others and be very inclusive for others to show up and have their thoughts known.
Deborah, this is like a masterclass in self-awareness that you're doing. And actually the very first answer that you had was, ears in, hands out, or the listening skills. So you are a testament to self-awareness. Okay, question number 2. I'm actually very curious about this. What are your communication pet peeves?
Oh, my communication pet peeves are people that talk the talk but don't walk the talk. So they can be great communicators. They can be telling you all the great things. At the end of the day, they don't show up. They don't deliver. You talked about under promise and over deliver. They have the opposite, over promise and undeliver. And so to me, there's a style you always observe and you take away. You like, oh, I really liked how they showed up. So that would be a pet peeve, is somebody who just wants to take up space, who wants to be the loudest, wants to be the smartest in the room, but at the end of the day doesn't give other people opportunity to speak.
Or they're not doing the work to back up their convictions.
And I think as women, one of the things I have heard as well is we're worker bees. So when you show up on a board, we might get delegated. Like I had that lean in concept for the special committee, but we were all leaning in and we all had different areas. But if I was the only one leaning in and it was all men on a special committee, I might have to step back and go, wait a sec, this does not make sense, right? So I think when we show up, we want to make sure that we have an equal voice and we have influence and power, and it's not being delegated to be the worker bee on the committee or on the board.
Yeah. 100%. I recently had an episode with Dr. Amy Deal, who's a co-author of a book called Glass Walls. And she talks about all of this, including office housekeeping or non-promotable tasks. So you can guess what that is. So you want to make sure it's not that, and she said, Andrea, it's not that you're not doing those things, but it's that you're not the only one that's doing them, right? And I think the same thing goes for all of the work. You don't want to be like, oh, good girl, Deborah, doing all the work while the guys are doing all the talking. No. You're speaking for your work, and then they're speaking for their work, not just raising their hands and whatever, boasting, whatever vacuous comment it is. Okay, third and last rapid fire question is there a podcast or a book that you find yourself recommending a lot lately?
Can I give you two?
Please.
The one that I read recently, and she's got her global podcast theory, is Mel Robbins, as you know. And she has her book, Let Them Theory. Phenomenal book. It's about communication. It's about relationship. And I kind of went in, and she's got it researched back, but the real is about setting boundaries for yourself. Let them. So, we all have kids. They're growing up. Sometimes we want to do everything. Sometimes we have to let them. And then her view is let them, but then let me. So you as an individual. So it's really about setting boundaries in communication and in lifestyle and everything from family to work to love relationships. It's a full gamut.
Friendships.
Yeah. Why certain friends are in your life today, and then proximity and not necessarily proximity. So, it almost kind of gives you the permission to say, yeah, maybe I don't have that friendship anymore because I moved away, or maybe I wasn't investing in it, and it's okay. I think it was really giving us permission to let them. It's called the let them theory.
You said there were two? Is it because it's a podcast and a book?
Well, I read it in Audibles. Okay. So I listened to it in Audibles. So the other book that and you probably know her, Lisa Bragg with Bragging Rights.
I know her very well. Yes.
Would really speak to some of the work that you're doing as well, is that whole having a purposeful self-promotion. I just heard her speak last week at a Women in AI, and you know who one of the award winners were, Andrea?
Yes, I do. Sherry Shannon Vanstone. Yes.
Lisa was there, one of the speakers, and it was really enlightening. And I hadn't heard her speak on her book. So then I just said, I've just ordered 4 copies for my friends. And she's like, congratulations, go on Amazon and put some good reviews on. But I liked her approach is really, it is that we as women, we have to be more purposeful in how we self-promote ourselves.
So I will put links to Mel Robbins' book and to Lisa Bragg's book in the show notes. And I'm not bragging here, but I have to tell you, I'm quoted in Lisa's book.
So Andrea, am I not surprised? Because I haven't read it. I just got it, but I'm like ready to delve into it.
Yeah, you can see the connection. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners, the Talk About Talk listeners, Deborah, about getting on boards, about communicating about your board role, or communicating when you're in the board meeting?
I would like to say that it's a journey. And if I look back over the 25 years, how I showed up 25 years ago versus how I show up now is different. And I think you have to be kind to yourself. A lot of people set these expectations and they should be this and they should be that. And it's like, whoa, you got to work your way there. And so, it is a journey and you want to map it out. And each time you take on a new board role or a new opportunity, make sure you're learning up and you're going outside your comfort zone. Always be pushing. Don't go to status quo. Don't go back to, hey, I've always done it. It should be continuous learning. So that's what I'd say. It's a journey. It's a very fulfilling journey, but be very deliberate and strategic where you put your time and how you value yourself.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for your time and for sharing your expertise. I learned a lot from you and I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
So many nuggets. Whether you're seeking to improve your communication, or you're seeking a board position, or you're a woman looking to establish credibility, or perhaps all of the above. Thank you so much, Deborah. Okay, let me share with you now my 3 key learnings. If you've been listening, you know that I am a big fan of the power of 3. And it turns out, so is Deborah. So let's make that the first point. The power of 3 when it comes to women on boards. 1 woman on a board is a token. 2 is a presence, and 3 is a voice. If you lead a board or a committee or even just a team, I hope you'll consider this rule of 3. 1 is a token, 2 is a presence, 3 is a voice. This is the power of 3. The second point that I want to reinforce is the power of preparation. Deborah shared a powerful story about how she asked a CEO something related to a footnote in one of his financial statements. That is preparation. And preparation is key. Preparation can drive your credibility and your confidence. This reminded me of a quote that I heard recently from Janet Yellen, the economist and former chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve. I heard her on a podcast, and she said that she attributed to much of her success to ensuring that she was always the most prepared person in the room. Okay, moving on to the third and last point that I want to reinforce. Deborah shared this lovely acronym that I hope you'll remember. And I know I'm going to remember this. I'm going to start writing this on the top of all my meeting agendas. It's WAIT. Why am I talking? This is about being self-aware. Got it? And that's it. Thanks again to Deborah Rosati for sharing her generous advice to help all of us, especially women, get on boards. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I hope you'll share it with a friend, and please subscribe or follow us on YouTube if you're not subscribed already. Talk soon.